Why, hello there. Today, we are going to talk about my past, present, and future of books. What I've read, what I'm in the middle of, and what we're going to get into. So, let's go. So, recently I finished An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson, and this was a dark academia book. It was an enemy. It was an enemies to lovers book, and had to do with vampires. And I thought it was all right. I felt like for an enemies to lovers, it was like the enemies were mildly annoyed with each other for like a hot minute and then that was over. So I really never felt any kind of like anticipation because you just are like, well, they're gonna get together. And then the mild annoyance was over. I thought it was an alright book. I read the whole thing. It was interesting enough to keep me like turning pages, but I didn't love it. I thought I was gonna love it a lot more. I think everything felt rushed to me. I don't know. It was very atmospheric. I liked that about it. I liked the ideas of the story, but I felt like sometimes like there'd be stuff happening that could possibly be intense that the characters were like, oh, it's fine. Just ignore it, it'll go away. We just won't talk about it. And I felt like maybe there was a little couple like missing things that could have made the story just a little more cohesive. So that's just my opinion. I thought it was still decent. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it. So currently what I'm in the middle of, I'm reading The Book of Doors by Gareth Brown. It's about, well, the Book of Doors. And the Book of Doors is a magical book that can open doorways to anywhere. Kind of like you have to have been there though, because when you imagine the door, you have to like imagine it and see yourself there and opening it to walk through it. So you can't just be like, if you've never been to Greece, you wouldn't necessarily know a doorway, but maybe you could like look online and look it up. I don't know, I'm not that far in. Like where if you go on the internet to look up certain doorways and certain things, like if you could get a feel for it and then like go to Greece, maybe you can. I'm not sure so far in this book, but there's a bunch of different other books around. So what happens? There's this guy who visits this bookstore all the time. He's older and he's there. He's reading the Count of Monte Cristo and he's talking to the girl that works there. He ends up passing away and leaves these two books, Count of Monte Cristo and this other like little tiny leather bound book that looks like a journal. And so main character picks it up, takes it with her, and she's kind of distraught because this man died and she had known him. You know, they always chatted. He was always nice when he was there. And so later she finds this inscription in the book saying basically that he left it to her. So she's like, all right. And then once she discovers what it can do, it kind of blows her mind. And so her and her roommate, they go a few places and then they start talking about it. The roommates will like, what if this fell into the hands of a bad person? And like they start talking about this and whatnot. And so there's this other guy, his name's Drummond Fox. I guess you would say he's kind of one of the good guys. And he wants to basically find these people to talk to the girl who has the Book of Doors. And this is a way to get back to his family's library that has a bunch of these other magical books that they've been protecting for years. But there's a bunch of bad dudes out there. They want this door for themselves. So it's going to probably be like a chaotic, just insanity. There's gonna be people coming out of the woodworks for this book because it's the Book of Doors. You could just go rob banks or you could go murder people or you could do whatever if you're an evil person. So it's kind of a wild premise, which I thought was pretty cool. And I'm about 80 pages in, so not too far, and enjoying it quite a bit. All right, so let's tell you what we're gonna get into. All right, so first up we have Forgotten Sisters by Cynthia Palaio. And this is my first book by this author, and I'm pretty excited to read it. So let's tell you what it's about. Story time with Sin. One embraces the dread. The other is looking for escape. Sisters Anna and Jenny live in a historic bungalow on the Chicago River. They're tethered to a disquieting past, and with nowhere else to go, nothing can part them from their family home. Not the maddening creaks and the disembodied voices that rattle the old walls, not the inexplicable drownings in the area, or the increasing number of bodies that float by Anna's window. To stave off loneliness, Anna has a podcast spinning ghostly tales of Chicago's tragic history. But when Anna captures the attention of an ardent male listener, She awakens to the possibilities of a world outside. As their relationship grows, so do Jenny's fears. More and more people are going missing in the river, and then two detectives come calling. They're looking for a link between the mysteries of the river and what's housed on the bank. Even Anna and Jenny don't understand how dreadful it is, and still can be when the truth about their unsettled lives begins to surface. So I'm super excited to read this, and it sounds pretty great. We'll be starting that one real soon. So the next one, I picked this up because I follow Kristen Johnson on Threads, and she posted about this book, and then I read the synopsis, and it sounded pretty good. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And that is If You Can't Take the Heat by Geraldine DeRuyter. All right, what's this book about? Let me tell you. From the James Beard award-winning blogger behind the Everywhereist comes hilarious, searing essays on how food and cooking stoked the flames of her feminism. When celebrity chef Mario Batali sent out an apology letter in response to the sexual misconduct allegations made against him, he had the gall to include a recipe for cinnamon rolls of all things. Geraldine DeRuyter decided to make the recipe, and she happened to make food journalism history along with it. I never heard about that. Her subsequent essay, with its scathing commentary about the pervasiveness of misogyny in the food world, would be read millions of times and lauded by the industry luminaries from Martha Stewart to New York Times restaurant critic Pete Wells. It would land DeRuyter in the middle of a media firestorm. She found herself on the receiving end of dozens of threats when all she wanted to do was make something to eat. And okay, fine, maybe take down the patriarchy. Good for her. And if you can't take the heat, DeRuyter shares stories about her shockingly true, painfully funny, and sometimes just painful adventures in gastronomy. We'll learn how she finally got a grip on her debilitating anxiety by emergency meal planning for the apocalypse. You are probably deeply worried that in times of desperation, I would eat your pets, and yes, I absolutely would, she says. Or how she learned to embrace being hangry, because women can be a lot of things, but we can't be angry, or president, apparently. And how she inadvertently caused another international incident with a negative restaurant review. She made it onto the homepage of the New York Times website and got more death threats. Deliciously insightful and bitingly clever. If You Can't Take the Heat is a fresh look at food and feminism from one of the culinary world's sharpest voices. I cannot wait to read this. It sounds amazing. Definitely there will be a standalone review for this one coming up, so keep an eye out for that one. Okay, this next one is super random. This was a drive-by booking. Drive-by booking, and that is The Extinction of Irena Ray by Jennifer Croft. Never heard of this author, never heard of this book. I just was kind of like, I liked the cover. I don't know, it's like the woods, the trees are blue, the word extinction of a person. I assumed it would be maybe kind of like horror-ish-esque. I don't know what I thought. Some books pull me in, and then I read the synopsis and I thought it sounded interesting, so let me tell you the synopsis. 8 translators arrive at a house in the primeval Polish forest on the border of Belarus. It belongs to the writer Irena Ray, and they are there to translate her magnum opus, Ray Eminence. But within days of their arrival, Irena disappears without a trace. The translators, who hail from 8 different countries but share the same reverence for their beloved author, begin to investigate where she has gone while they proceed with work on her masterpiece. They explore this ancient wooded refuge with its intoxicating slime molds and lichens, and study her exotic belongings and layered texts for clues. But doing so reveals secrets and deceptions of Irena Ray's that they are utterly unprepared for. Forced to face their differences as they grow increasingly paranoid in the fever dream of isolation and obsession, soon the translators are entangled in a web of rivalries and desire that threaten not only their work, but the fate of their beloved author herself. This hilarious, thought-provoking debut is a brilliant examination of art, celebrity, the natural world, and the transformative power of language. It is an unforgettable, unputdownable adventure with a small but global cast of characters shaken by the shocks of love, destruction, and creation of one of Europe's last great wildernesses. And I read that synopsis and I was like, that sounds fantastic. So I'm super stoked to read The Extinction of Irena Ray. I think this one sounds pretty dang fun. So we'll see. We shall see. I always like surprise books, although it's like a 50-50 shot. A lot of times I end up DNFing them. There was, I think a couple weeks back, I had a library run and I ended up DNFing like 3 of the books that I randomly picked up. They were, I don't know. I don't know what happened, but you never know, you know? You read it, if it's not vibing, then we say goodbye. We're like, see you later, get them out of here. If you are a fan of videos where I talk about multiple things that I am reading or have read, the next video coming up is going to be about that. So stick around, check it out. And if you had fun hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back, see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.